But I got to tell you this. Justin Todd did that song. I asked you to do that this morning. I want you to know that beyond a shadow of a doubt, I don't care what that boy had in mind when he wrote that song, if he was thinking of chicks or if he was thinking of people in the Word or what. But I'm here to tell you that the good Lord is all in amongst, up in that song. And that's all I got to say about that. And I have to share with you this morning that if you ain't figured out by now, we're going to talk about friendships today. Okay, we talked a little bit about it with the youngsters this morning. I want to share the definition this morning with you of a friend according to the concordance in my Bible. A friend is an intimate companion or associate, one attached to another by affection or esteem. And friends, I would say to you this morning that just because you're attached in affection or esteem don't mean that you don't have friendship quarrels, okay? And I got to say that to you. I got to tell you that this morning because this last week, how many of you believe I'm going to say it was a crazy day in the life of Jeremy? It was a crazy day in the life of some church members that got to share the better half of a few hours with Pastor Jeremy this week. I want to tell you a story. We took off on Thursday afternoon to go and get the Jesus bus that's out here. Now, the Jesus bus was a number of miles away up in a little town called Leonard, Texas. It's up close to where I'm from. And we wanted to go by way of Dallas so we could look at a few more buses along the way. And so I asked if my wife would go with me. And throughout the week, she had repetitively told me no. And I said, you know, I'm the head of the household, dadgummit. She ought to be saying yes. And I said, honey, I'd really like for you to go on this trip with me. No, I don't want to go. And so we have been trying to get our house lined out and back on the market. And there's a few things that in our excess of doing other things have been neglected at the house, such as the shrubs and such as some leaf, like the leaf cleaning up, that kind of stuff. And I knew my wife was serious when she said, I would rather stay home and work on the shrubs and the leaves. I said, I don't understand this. Well, maybe God's provision was raining down on us at that time because we left out about 3:30 in the afternoon. Brother Mike, Nat, Brother Roderick, and myself. We loaded into my little rice rocket and we headed out. Well, they asked me where we were going. And so I said, well, somebody else is going to have to drive. And they said, what do you mean? I said, well, it's in my GPS on my phone. And so we put Roderick behind the wheel. At that point in time, Mike and I started a prayer vigil silently because I'm here to tell you that Roderick drives like Mario Andretti after he's had too much of the cooking sherry, okay? That joker, he goes and he stops, and he goes and he stops. And so Mike's in the back seat, and I'm feeling somebody pushing the air brake on the back of my seat. And it's Mike trying to stop before we hit the car in front of us. But we did tell Roderick that we needed to get there. And so, long story short, the three of us ventured out. My wife did not go. We got up there. We looked at the first bus. And they were still looking at the pieces of the motor and how one piece that was supposed to be here was over here on this bus and how things had been combobulated back together, and there was some seals that weren't quite right. And then I done phoned the guy and said, fellow, this bus ain't right for us. We're going to keep on going. They're still looking at the bus. I'm like, guys, we really need to go on this one. And then I asked them, I said, guys, what do you think? And they said, it's a little rough for us, Pastor. So we went to the next one. And the next one was up in Leonard, Texas. Now, this is my old stomping grounds. And so you would think that Pastor Jeremy had a clue as to where we were going, what was going on. But I'm just going to tell y'all, here at Christmas, I got to talking with Roderick. We was finally out on a road that there wasn't a bunch of cars on, and I felt like I could loosen up a little bit. And Mike's foot come down out of the back of my seat, and we're just rolling down the road, and I get to chatting and talking, and we drive right past that 121 exit, and we go to a little town called Anna about 30 minutes later. And Roderick said, where am I supposed to exit at? I said, uh-oh. I said, it was supposed to have been 2 exits up about an hour ago. So I GPS it real quick, and we get turned around. And we head down these little old farm-to-market roads, kind of what you might call, look like a road out here in front of us. some of them, and Roderick, he's kind of a man of few words, and he's driving. Mike's just back there being quiet. I think he's still plastered to the seat from Roderick's driving. And so Roderick finally says, "You sure we're on the right path, Pastor?" And I said, "Well, according to this GPS, all's going well. We're going to go up here, we're going to turn right, we're going to turn left, we're going to be on the right track, we'll be there before you know it." We finally get there. And I'll just have to say, these two men have been very patient with Pastor Jeremy, because I was lost in the goose in the hailstorm 2 different times, but I didn't have the intestinal fortitude to tell them about it, okay? And so we get there, and we go looking at the bus, and I 100% wanted their mechanical expertise to come out. Okay, so now I'm saying that to tell y'all, if the bus breaks down, it ain't my fault. They're the ones who picked it out. Not really. But long story short, we decided that was the bus. We took it to a test drive in it. One of them drove the bus. Man, it drives tight. It runs good. We want this thing. And so we got with the man, got all the financials taken care of, the paperwork and stuff taken care of, and we headed home. Now, they were in the rice rocket behind me, and I was driving the bus. And since I was diagnosed with diabetes, I got this little issue. I can drink a gallon of water, but it's going to leave me 18 minutes later. Okay? Roderick would tell you 5 minutes later from when he was driving in. And so we were having to stop. They're like, "Man, when are we stopping for this time?" "Gotta go to the bathroom, dude. Gotta go to the bathroom." And so we stopped several times that were legitimate like that. And I'm telling all you this for a reason. I'm getting to a point with this. Well, there was a point in time that I'm just cruising right on down the interstate. We're rocking the big house, got the big speakers on, playing the Mercy Me CD. We're rocking out, hats on backwards. We got the Jesus Boom Boom bus going, okay? And I'm loving it. The lights are glowing behind me. They're back there behind me in the bus. And all of a sudden, I felt like I ran over the transmission of our own bus. Fact of the matter was, we, in all of our glory of getting the bus and excitement, and I say we because none of us thought about it or nothing, we didn't check the air pressure on the tires. That bus had been sitting around for a little bit. And we blowed out a tire. And I'm telling you, when you blow out a tire on a bus, it feels like you ran over the transmission. And so after I look in my rearview mirror as this is happening, and I see the dodging taking place by Mario Andretti over there, he's just a going around and all. I pulled off to the side of the road, and I got out of the bus, and I walked back there, and I was scratching my head, and I stood there. I said, "Well, we got a spare?" And they both started laughing at me. I said, "No." And I said, "Well, we got a lug wrench laying up there in the floor of the bus. What do we do?" Mike said, "Well, that tire's not going to air up very easy." The fact of the matter was, about half the rubber, I think, went over the hood of my car. But they're still being patient. They're still being understanding. They're still being calm. I don't know if it's because they were getting tired and they were just thinking of the house or what. But we finally, in Italy, Texas, pull in at that little McDonald's over there that's a truck stop. Got 900 trucks in the parking lot. And they tell me, "It's time to eat dinner, Pastor." And I said, "Okay." We go into McDonald's. We have us a hamburger. We got a little bit of excitement from the local truck drivers there. And then we go back out, and they tell me to stay put. They're going to take the rice rocket, go see if they can find an air outlet so we can air up the inside tire more. They didn't know air at this truck stop. But they said 15 miles down the road at the Petro, we've got air. And that would be at the, what used to be Carl's Corner or Willie's Place, whatever. Is that right? Yeah, close to it right there. So we pull in there. We go back there and we check the air pressure in the tires. Now I got to tell you that under a normal circumstance, you're supposed to have 105 pounds, isn't that right? 105 pounds of air in a tire. God's grace was upon us because the most that any of them had was 45 pounds. Okay? So that one tire was sustaining us, and all I could think of was Jesus was inside that tire going round and round because it had sustained us this far. We take about the next hour of our life to air up the tires. The guys are still being very, very calm. We get back on the road. we're headed to the house. Now I have to tell you, I'm going to tell off on myself here, but Roderick looks at me and he says, "Have you looked at that gas gauge, preacher?" And I said, "Well, it don't matter about that gas gauge, it don't work no how." I said, we put $100 worth of fuel in the thing, we're good to go. We're in Italy, right? We're just right up the road. I exited at Elmont, at where the Dairy Queen and the Exxon station is, and Mike thought I just had to go to the bathroom again. But I just eased it over into this gravel road out here in this little area. And Mike pulls up there, and Mike and Roddy pull up there, and they roll down the windows. They said, "Bathroom again?" No. The bus quit. Not once through the whole trip did either one of them wring my neck. And I began to think, what are we going to do in this situation? I began to think, what is the logical thing to do? Well, here it is, 1:45 in the morning. We're trying to get the Jesus bus back to the church, and we're sitting on the side of the road in Elmont, Texas, and I'm out of fuel. And right then and there, it popped into my head, there's a reason that God didn't let Chantel go on this trip, because I would be a dead man, and there would be no preacher on Sunday. Okay? Now, why have I told you this whole big, long, combobulated story about the Jesus bus? I'm going to tell you why I told you that. I found two friends that night. I found two friends. I didn't realize the patience that these guys had. And all we could do at 1:45 in the morning was laugh. Now I got to finish the story. I told Mike, I said, "Mike, I'm going to stay here because this bus has got all these speakers in it, and it's got these amps in it, and I'm going to stay here with the bus while y'all go get fuel." And Mike says, "Okay, preacher, do you need my gun?" And I looked at him and I said, "I think we're all right. Everything's good." And so from there, they left to go get gas. They came back with a 1-gallon gas can. Big bus, 1-gallon gas can.
$10.42 for that can.
$10.42 for this little old can. Now let me tell you about the can. On a gas can, it's got a flute on the end of it, right? Well, now they make these things where you got to pull that flute back. It's a safety cap. Well, the other little kicker to this story is between the wall of the outside of the bus that you see and the gas tank nozzle that's on it, there's about this much room. And the hole's about this big that you got to go through. And so we're standing here. They've got this $10.45 gas can. It's got fuel in it. And we're standing here, and the connection ain't taking place. And I got two of the best mechanics in McLennan County with me. I'm excited about the whole thing. And I'm standing here and going, how we going to get that in there, boys? Well, I'm going to tell you what. I found God's grace in a Windex bottle and a Mountain Dew can. And I'll tell you what we did. We cut the end off one, cut the end off the other, jobbed them all together. We was able to get fuel in the bus. I said, we're going to the church, right? And that point in time was the only time that my friend, Mike Knapp, changed his way of thinking. He looked at me and he goes, "No, we're going to the boat. We're going to the gas station." And so he wasn't like that. He was really nice about it. But he did say we needed to go into the gas station, preacher. And so we went and got a little bit of fuel. We come on in. I got home in time to take a shower and go to work. No questions were asked about why my wife didn't go. Nothing, no comments were made about that. But I think that God's grace was there. I tell all of this story to tell you, we all need friends. We all find times that we're down. And just as we were talking, and just as you sang that song that says that every one of us find those rain clouds, every one of us find those storms, but we still need a friend. Now I'm going to start right into my message this morning, and I want you to know that I'm going to cover it from two different books of the Bible, but I want to share with you about 12 of God's people. 12 chosen disciples by Jesus that traveled with him day in and day out through the ups and downs. And I have to say to you that I can't help but think of two of the disciples of our modern day church, being Roderick and Mike, that went on this journey with me. And ours was a little journey with little problems. The disciples went on a long journey with big problems. Okay, many of you would know of some different things that went on. Probably the most well-recognized story of a disciple's troubles would be with Judas Iscariot. We all know, and I'm going to share with you kind of the prelude to the life of Judas Iscariot from my Bible. And this is not in Scripture. This is just a passage about him. It says it's easy to overlook the fact that Jesus chose Judas to be one of his disciples. We may also forget that while Judas betrayed Jesus, all of the disciples abandoned him. With the other disciples, Judas shared a persistent misunderstanding of Jesus' mission. They all expected Jesus to make the right political moves. When he kept talking about dying, they felt varying degrees of anger, fear, and disappointment. They didn't understand why they had been chosen if his mission was doomed to fail. When we set out on our mission to go and get that bus, I don't think Roderick or Mike would have ever dreamed of getting home at time to go to work. I don't think that they would have ever dreamed of the hardship that we would go through in that situation. And that's just a minute hardship. Those were just little bitty molehills in a world full of mountains. But at that point in time, as we were going through them, as we were being faced with those trials and tribulations, they was pretty big mountains to us. And I would say to you that in your life, you go through those same types of trials and tribulations and mountains. Those things overcome you from day to day, and though they may be a little bitty thing in a great big picture, to you at that point in time, they're Mount Everest. Friends, I'm going to say to you, James Taylor, that wrote that song, he didn't know he was writing a song about Jesus. He was talking about having friends in the world. But as I talked about with the young people this morning, a friend in the world will let you down. They'll get you in trouble. They'll leave you stranded without a gas can. That ain't even funny. But I'm going to tell you this. There's a man that won't leave you stranded. And you go, but how do I know? How can I understand? Well, I believe we can understand by looking at the life of the disciples, the people that traveled with Jesus day in and day out, went on the journeys with him. And I think we have to bring that into everyday perspective of our daily life journey. Justin Todd said this morning his starter's going out on his old pickup. Still doesn't change the fact that he's got to get from point A to point Z to do ministry. There's still somebody between point A and point Z that needs Jesus in the middle. Fact of the matter is, whether he's riding a donkey or driving a Dodge, they're both pretty close to one another. I love you. I love you. I wanted to see if our crowd was awake this morning. Fact of the matter is, he's still got to get there, okay? It's up to us as brothers and sisters in Christ to look out for one another. If there's somebody in our congregation that's struggling financially, we help them. If there's somebody that's struggling in our congregation morally, we help them. The answer is not to kick them to the curb. It's not to get rid of them. It's not to cast them out. It's to get on board with what God wants to do in their life. This place is a hospital. Some people would say, what are you talking about, Pastor? This ain't no hospital, this is a church. No, this is a hospital for the spiritually sick.
That's right.
Every one of us are spiritually sick. I ain't going to say that I ain't. I'm not going to say that you ain't, because we all are. We have sinned and fell short of the glory of God. Therefore, we're spiritually sick. We don't like to look at it that way sometimes. Sometimes people get a little bit twisted and hacked off and just brush your feelings off your shoulders and dust your toes off for a minute because I'm probably stepping on them. But the fact of the matter is we don't do enough loving on our brothers and sisters. You go, what do you mean, preacher? When's the last time you offered to help somebody when you really didn't have nothing to offer? Sometimes all they need is that offer. They don't really need your help. They don't really want you to come and do physical labor. They don't want you to be there and to literally have to spend time. Sometimes people want to know that somebody cares in their life. And I would say to you this morning, I don't care if you make $10 million a year, you own a Ford, a Dodge, and a Chevrolet. I don't care what your situation is in life. If you've got the cream of the crop, the top of the top, there's still problems in your life. I've shared this story before. One of the wealthiest men in my hometown. One of the wealthiest men in my hometown. He chose to end his life early. You go, How could a rich man want to die? He was miserable. He had a void. He had a missing hole. Justin and I talked a little bit about it last night. Before I met Jesus, I had that same hole. I was trying to fill it with everything. I tried to fill it with drugs, tried to fill it with alcohol, tried to fill it with women, tried to fill it with things of the world, material possessions. I tried to fill that void with everything. But it was still there. That hole couldn't be filled up. It was a bottomless pit, if you will. Friends, I would say to you this morning, Jesus traveled with 12 disciples. Jesus traveled with 12 disciples, and I'm going to talk to you this morning about 2 or 3 different things. First off, I want to share a scripture in the book of Mark, the 14th chapter with you. The 32nd verse. No, that's not right. The 27th verse. This is Jesus talking. You'll recognize who he's talking to. It says, "You will fall away," Jesus told them. "For it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered. But after I have risen, I will go ahead of you into Galilee." Peter declared, even if all fall away, I will not. "I tell you the truth," Jesus answered, "today, yes, tonight, before the rooster crows twice, you yourself will disown me 3 times. But Peter insistently and emphatically said, "Even I have to die with you. I will never disown you." And all the others said the same. Now I got to stop right there. These people have been traveling with Jesus. They've seen miracles take place. They've lived the rough, the tough, the good, the bad, and the ugly. They've been on that journey. They've made that trip side by side with Jesus. Jesus looks them straight in the face and he says, "Hey boys, y'all are going to cut out on me before morning." And they go, "Oh no, Jesus, you are a homeboy. We wouldn't do that." Jesus says, "Come on, boys." He says, "Y'all going to cut out on me 3 times before the rooster crows." Peter says, "No." Peter was a bold one. Peter says, "No, I ain't going to do that, miss." Jesus says, "Oh yeah." We all know from that point in time the way the story ends, and if we don't, I'm going to share it with you this morning. Jesus goes to the garden to agonize in agony. Then he went to a place called Gethsemane, and Jesus said to the disciples, "Sit here while I pray." He took Peter, James, and John along with him, and he began to be deeply distressed and troubled. "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death," he said to them. "Stay here and keep watch." Going a little farther, he fell to the ground and prayed that if it possible, the hour might pass from him. "Abba, Father," he said, "everything is possible for you. Take this cup from me, yet not what I will, but what you will." Jesus knew that these men that he was supposed to be the closest to, the ones that were supposed to be his bestest of the bestest friends, he knew they was going to let him down. Now I'm going to say this to you this morning. How many of you ever had somebody let you down in life? Don't lie. Whether it be your kiddos, whether it be a friend, whether it be some acquaintance, you felt like you got let down in life on something. It happens. It don't happen every day. It happens every minute of every day to somebody somewhere. Jesus is in the garden. He's upset. He's frustrated. But he knew they were going to let him down. But now let me ask you this. Did he kick him to the curb? Did he say, "Get the heck away from me, y'all trading son of a guns"? No. No, he took them along with him. There was something to be learned in that. There's a message within a message in just that little bit right there. That if we got a friend, if we got an acquaintance, if we got somebody in our life that ain't doing right, that ain't all there, the answer is not to kick them to the curb. It's not to kick them while they're down. The answer is to bring them along and to build them up so that they might learn something. Fact of the matter was, Jesus knew that he was going to die and that he was going to rise again, but the fact was that these were the people that he had trained up, and he knew that there was another situation coming where he needed them. And so he didn't choose to kick them to the curb. I was thanking God that Mike and Roderick didn't just go on to the house and not go pick up no fuel for that bus. I was grateful that they came back. I'm going to tell you this. All of us have had friends that wouldn't. All of us can say honestly, deep in our heart, that there have been people in our life that have let us down, that leave us high and dry, if you will. So that's the term we use in the cowboy world, high and dry. But that's not what it's about. It's about rebuilding. It's about finding those trials and tribulations and what you're supposed to learn out of them and where you're supposed to go with it. I learned not to ever get in a bus with the gas gauge broke again. I also learned not to drink 3 liters of Gatorade before I left on a long journey. I would say to you this morning, we can learn in every single thing we do. So Jesus is in the garden. He's in agony. He says, take this cup from me. But then he goes on to say, not what I want, but what you will. He's talking to the Father. He's praying to God. And he's saying, if at all possible, and it was my way, I'd probably say, take this from me. But it's not about me. That's what Jesus is saying. And that sets a second good example for us. That it's not about us. Okay? Now I can tell you this, there's things in this world I would like to have. I can point at congregation members that have certain things that I would love to own. The Bible tells us not to covet what our brother has. And I would say to you this morning that in this lesson that Jesus is teaching, it's about the will of the Father. This second part here that says let's see, where's it at there? Boy, have you ever lost your place just straight up? Yet not what I will, but what you will. How many of you have ever found yourself pressured in a tough time and you said, man, this ain't about me. What can I do to help you? When you were the one being pressured, you were the one in a bind, you were the one that found yourself in trouble, but you were less worried about you than somebody else. Most of the time it don't happen that way. Most of the time it's the other way around. Most of the time when the going gets tough, we want to look out for number one. Folks, that ain't what God calls us to do. He says look out for our brother and our sister. Reach out to our brother and sister. Reach out to those that are suffering, hurting, needing the help. So easily said, so hard to do. Then he returned to the disciples and found them sleeping. Simon, he said to Peter, are you asleep? Could you not watch for 1 hour? Watch and pray so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the body is weak. That's what Jesus said to him. He scolded him out of love, but then he gave him words of encouragement to keep him a-trucking and on the right path. We fall short of that so many times. We stop. We scold and then bail. We get frustrated and we're done. It's okay to scold somebody in love. It's okay. But do we uplift them on the next breath? Because that's the example that Jesus set with Simon Peter right there in the garden for us. Watch and pray so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the body is weak. Once more, he went away and prayed the same thing. When he came back, here he found them sleeping because their eyes were heavy. They did not know what to say to him. Returning a third time, he said to them, are you still sleeping and resting? Enough! The hour has come. Look, the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us go. Here comes my betrayer. And I want us to stop right there. I want us to dig a little bit into this passage. And I know that it's not Easter time. I know that it's not Easter time, but let me say this to you. Easter should be every day of our life. We should be excited in the fact that the grace that God gave to us. But I got to share with you this morning that it's real easy to betray Jesus on a daily basis. And I have to ask you this question this morning. How many of you have ever been like one of the disciples? You're going right along, you're doing the things you're supposed to do, you're reading a good book, things is going good in your life, you're trying real hard, and boom! Terror strikes your life. You get slapped with the messed up situation in life. What happens at that point in time? What happens? Is the example set? Do you find a way to work through it? Or do you get frustrated, start throwing things, bail out, go a different direction? Would have been real easy on our little trip that we took for them guys to say, you know what, buddy? This is on you. You get that bus home. We're going to take that rice wagon on home. It would have been real easy for them to have left me from the word go and come on back because they both had to work the next morning. Rather than making that trip at 60, 65 miles an hour behind the bus. But they didn't. We were a team. We started out on a journey together.